Now on to the next question, question 8, which is one of my favourite topics, expected value. And I expect that there may be something like this in the exam in 2024, as this was taken out of the exam in the last 2 years. So Greg is moving house and needs to hire a storage room, and if he books it in advance, he has to pay £30 a week. However, he doesn't know how long he will need it for. It might be 4 weeks, it might be 5 weeks, it might even be 6 weeks. So he has to decide how many weeks he should book this for. If he needs to book it for extra, then he has to pay a higher rate of £40 a week. So in part A, the £30 a week for 6 weeks is option C, which is the straightforward one, and he will be guaranteed to have it as long as he needs it. And you simply do 6 times 30 to get £180 is how much he will pay for option C. Now later on we're going to work out the costs of the expected costs of options A and B, but this is breaking it down for you, and it tells you in part B that you need to work out the probability that the room is needed for 1 extra week, and also that the room is needed for 2 extra weeks. So looking at the information in the question, there's a 40% chance the move will be delayed. Now if it is delayed, then on top of that 40% chance, the 90% chance it will only be needed for 1 extra week. So it's the combination of those two events is 40% of 90%, or in other words 0.4 multiplied by 0.9, which would be 0.36, which is 36% chance. For part B it's very similar, needed for 2 extra weeks, so again within that 40% chance there's a 10% chance it will be needed for 2 weeks. So that is simply 40% of 10%, or 0.4 multiplied by 0.1, so 0.04 or 4% chance is needed for 2 extra weeks. Now we're on to part C, where we have to work out expected value. Now expected value doesn't just mean what you expect is going to happen, it does have a specific mathematical meaning, which is simply the probability of the value multiplied by the value. So for option A, we are hiring for 4 weeks, whatever happens, and each week is going to be £30. So we do 4 times 30 to get £120. However, we also need to add on the penalties. So we worked out in part B, the probability of needing it for 1 extra week was 0.36. The cost of an extra week would be the £40 for 1 extra week. So we add on 0.36 multiplied by 40. Then, for 2 extra weeks, probability of 0.04, that will be a charge of £80. 40 plus 40 is 80. And when you work all this out, your total expected cost will be £137.60. Part D, we have to work out the expected value of option B. It does seem like we are doing the same thing more than once. Option B, you have to hire the room for 5 weeks. Each week costs you £30, and then anything extra beyond the 5 weeks will cost you £40 per week. So you have to do 5 times 30, which you'll have to pay whatever happens, £150. Then we have to add on the possible extra payment. We worked out in part B that's a 0.04 chance of needing the room for 6 weeks, and if we do need the room for 6 weeks, it's just 1 extra week on top of the 5 weeks we've already paid for, so that's only £40 extra we need to pay. And when you work all this out, it's £151.60. It's an easy question, which option has the lowest expected cost? And we can see from what we worked out before, it's option A. It's only £137.60. Option B is more expensive at £151.60, And we worked out before that option C was going to be £180. And you state this: he should choose option A as the expected value, or the expected cost, is the least. And I never know whether you need to explicitly compare the numbers, but it never does any harm. So you say that the £137.60 is less than the £151.60 and also the £180. And then you're absolutely clear that you've compared the numbers and haven't just made a lucky guess.